President Trump intensified pressure on Europe over Greenland, framing U.S. control of the strategically vital, resource-rich island as a national security imperative rather than a purely diplomatic question. He warned that countries opposing a U.S. takeover could face escalating tariffs, a tactic that has already prompted European leaders to prioritize de-escalation over retaliation. Trump linked his tougher posture to frustration over being passed over for the Nobel Peace Prize while reiterating claims that his past actions helped prevent or end multiple conflicts. European governments privately acknowledge Washington's leverage, given America's central role in their security and economic stability, and are searching for compromises that avoid open confrontation. The standoff underscores Trump's willingness to use economic power to force strategic conversations long deferred, reshaping transatlantic relations around clearer U.S. interests. Joe Rogan, often described as America's most influential swing voter, has criticized aspects of President Trump's immigration enforcement after a controversial ICE shooting in Minneapolis. Rogan's reaction is framed as notable because of his massive audience and his earlier role in boosting Trump's appeal to anti-establishment voters in 2024. The piece stresses Rogan's ideological inconsistency, noting his history of supporting figures across the political spectrum and rejecting any role as a political authority. Although some analysts portray Rogan's comments as a turning point for Trump, it notes that past predictions of Trump's decline have frequently been overstated. In the end, it leaves open whether Rogan's unease signals a durable shift in public opinion or reflects the broader tension over enforcing immigration laws while respecting civil liberties, an issue Trump has deliberately forced into focus. President Trump argues that U.S. ownership of Greenland would enhance national security, a position supported by the island's outsized importance in North Atlantic and Arctic defense planning. When viewed with accurate geography, Greenland is not remote at all but sits between North America and Europe, squarely within the center of NATO territory. Its location along critical naval choke points, such as the GIUK and Bear Gaps, makes it essential for tracking Russian submarines and naval movements entering the Atlantic. Greenland also lies along the shortest missile and flight paths between Russia and the United States, explaining the continued presence of a U.S. Space Force base and interest in expanding early warning systems. More than a century of repeated American efforts to acquire Greenland suggests that Trump's emphasis reflects long-standing strategic thinking rather than a sudden or isolated idea. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado met President Trump at the White House and presented him with her Nobel Peace Prize, which he accepted as a gesture of mutual respect. Trump praised Machado personally while emphasizing a pragmatic U.S. approach focused on stability and results in Venezuela. The administration signaled continued engagement with Venezuela's current leadership to secure tangible outcomes, including prisoner releases and renewed oil flows. Officials said Trump remains open to future elections, but is prioritizing leverage and cooperation that can deliver near-term gains for both countries. Allies of Machado called the meeting constructive, even as Trump underscored his preference for deal-making that advances U.S. interests and regional order. During a tour of Ford's River Rouge complex in Michigan, President Trump promoted his administration's efforts to strengthen U.S. auto manufacturing. A Ford employee, T.J. Sabula, heckled Trump with a crude accusation as the president walked past on the factory floor. Trump responded by pointing at the worker and briefly raising his middle finger, a moment captured on video and widely shared online. The White House defended the response as appropriate given the disruption, while Ford suspended the employee for violating workplace conduct standards. The incident highlighted the limits of political speech in the workplace and the charged atmosphere that continues to follow Trump during public appearances. U.S. ouster of Venezuela's Nicolas Maduro has sharply undercut China's long-standing push into Latin America, forcing Beijing to reassess a regional strategy built on loans, commodities, and political alignment. Maduro's fall dismantled China's most important hemispheric ally and left Beijing exposed to unpaid debts and the possible loss of privileged access to Venezuela's vast oil reserves. Since President Trump's return to office, several Latin American governments have moved closer to Washington, reinforcing U.S. influence while Chinese economic and diplomatic leverage has weakened. Analysts say the decisive action in Venezuela has reinforced the credibility of the Monroe Doctrine and demonstrated Trump's willingness to use hard power to defend U.S. interests in the Western Hemisphere. As China shifts to a more defensive posture and weighs trade-offs elsewhere, the episode highlights how Trump's American-first focus has reshaped regional dynamics and reasserted American primacy. President Trump has shifted toward an aggressive affordability agenda, rolling out proposals aimed at lowering everyday costs while boosting household spending power. His ideas, ranging from a 10% cap on credit card interest rates to limits on large investors buying single-family homes, signal a willingness to challenge Wall Street in favor of consumers. The administration is also exploring using tariff revenue for direct payments to Americans and taking steps to push down energy and mortgage costs, areas where prices have frustrated voters. While economists say some measures would take time or require Congress, several could deliver tangible near-term relief, including lower gas prices and modestly cheaper mortgages. Taken together, the proposals allow Trump to argue that a strong economy can be paired with more visible cost relief for working families ahead of the midterm elections.